Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's go over what is happening today and what we can expect from Tesla stock, well, pretty much for the rest of the month, really, and potentially into October, which is, I'm going to say, and I'll be very honest, that's the month where I'm pretty skeptical about. Everyone was skeptical about the second half of September, and part of me was definitely a little bit skeptical about it as well, because the second half of September usually is bearish. But, and I've said this many times before, and I don't know where the screenshot is. I shared the screenshot before. The second half of September in an election year actually isn't that bad. It's October, and especially like middle to end of October, but pretty much October in general, where things are getting a little bit more, well, yeah, not great, let's just say. So anyways, all that being said and done, let's jump into it. Tesla closing the day up with a still respectable 1% on the day, closing at pretty much just shy of $257 per share, which compared to the market is a nice little bit, slight outperformance, we'll say, which is always a good thing to see. So let's talk about it, right? What do I see moving forward? So Tesla pretty much printed arguably an inside day today because, well, pretty much the whole day today it traded within yesterday's range, but it did close pretty much at the highs of the day on pretty low volume, though. I will admit the volume is definitely pretty bad, actually, I would argue. So that's not super convincing that it's having this quote-unquote rally on this low volume, but there are still some very short-term bullish things that I'll mention that I actually think Tesla can move a little bit higher, but it's short-term. So let's start with that first, right? And if I haven't mentioned it yet, by the way, of course, if you enjoy, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section is live. That link is below in the description of the video. For just $2.99 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates. Every single day the market is open. And sometimes other stocks as well. Like today, I talked about Visa stock with my members. But yeah, again, if you're interested, link is below. Or for $5, access to all of that, plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, let's talk about it. So 15 minutes, right? This is the one where I wanted to mention. This is kind of the potential bullish situation setting up on the 15-minute. Again, keep in mind, it is a 15-minute pattern. This pattern is a small pattern. It's not going to be some crazy move to the upside, right? But it is still something. And what it is of course, another rising triangle, which is the same thing that we saw not too long ago when we were trading right around here, right? We kind of got a rising triangle a little bit as we constantly kept getting rejected at 233 roughly, and we kept making higher lows. Same idea here, except at this time we're constantly getting rejected at pretty much right where we closed, if not slightly below that. So I would argue the close is actually kind of bullish. But the point is, we kept making higher lows by getting rejected at pretty much the same level, closed at pretty much the highs of the day. And honestly, I think tomorrow, pretty much as early as tomorrow, I think Tesla can actually go up to about 260. I am in that play. I am making that small little swing trade. Maybe even, it's not really a scalp, I guess. It's more of a swing trade. But anyway, the point is I think Tesla can move a little bit higher. But again, I want to make it very clear. It's almost a day trade, right? It's not a massive move up, like pretty much 260 roughly, which is going to be it pretty much hugging the top of this channel once again, which if it does that tomorrow will pretty much be 260. Is where I would expect that move. But I really I generally just don't expect anything more than that right now, right? Like, it's just kind of greedy, honestly, to think that it's going to go too much higher than that. It can. I mean, who knows? Obviously, TA isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. I can be wrong. But again, in terms of risk versus reward, it's just really bad in terms of like a longer term swing trade, like several days or several weeks up here. It's not, for me personally, something I'm eyeballing. Why? Because again, we're at the top of the channel. I mean, again, usually with channels, you ping pong in the channel, but you ping pong from the upper to bottom trend line, right? Kind of like what we did pretty much the whole time in this channel. Came to the bottom of the channel, came to the top of the channel, to the bottom of the channel, to the top of the channel, maybe to the bottom again, maybe to the right. And at some point, like I said many times, these rising channels, right? These rising channels, they do break to the downside. Like, it is what it is. That's just what they usually do. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. Obviously, there is a possibility that, it does these, ping pong, zigzags, whatever, and it breaks to the upside. That is a possibility. It's just not something I would personally bet on, especially when all my indicators are they're just screaming overbought. But again, there's a difference, and I'll make this very clear. There's a difference between being overbought and between showing a top signal. Being overbought does not mean it's a top signal. All it means is the fact that the stock is getting a little bit heated, right? It's getting a little bit overheated, and it's getting a little bit too greedy, right? Kind of like when, that greed meter sometimes people like to talk about from like CNN or CNBC or whatever it is, right? That's, extreme fear, extreme greed. Tesla right now, to me, with these kind of indicators, is in greed, if not potentially in extreme greed, right? It's approaching those categories, if not already there. So that's kind of the issue, right? It's just the risk reward is not great, despite this, short-term bullish scenario that can potentially play out as early as tomorrow. So, that's something to consider. But again, RSI just very overbought, right? I mean, again, if you just zoom out, you can see every time it crosses the red, every single other time, it's eventually come back down to the opposite side. It's happened every single time. Why would this be any different, right? It will not be any different. It's just a matter of how much more juice is there to squeeze before it finally begins to cool off. That's pretty much the only question you should be asking yourself. But again, and I'll make this clear, just because it's screaming overbought on almost every indicator that I look at, does not mean that it has to crash. Does not mean it even has to go down. It just means that the reward further upside versus the potential risk for the downside is just, in my opinion, not there. But again, regardless, the BX trend is still making higher highs on the daily, right? So that to me is essentially just showing the fact that, yeah, the stock is not ready to collapse or anything like that yet, right? It's still looking strong. There's still decent strength within the stock. I think worst case, short term, it'll come down to about the mid 240s, but like the stock still looks strong for now. And I say that specifically for now. That will change at some point. But this is why I don't short. This is why I'm not entering puts or anything like that, right? Because, I don't want to wait this out because we can just go sideways, right? We can also just go sideways for a while and you're just losing on puts, right? You're just losing on the theta decay. It's just not a risk I'm willing to take. But anyways, that's kind of the main thing that I'm looking at for Tesla, right? Same with the 4-hour. You can see the 4-hour also just very overbought. Indicators are still good. Indicators are still showing bullish momentum, right? Which is why I still wouldn't be surprised to see 260 tomorrow, honestly. But again, everything's just overbought. All my indicators are just very, very overbought. How much more higher really can this go before finally finding a rejection and finally moving to the downside is essentially the main question, right? So again, I just want to make that very clear. Now, let's just talk about it, right? What are the main levels to really look out for? Well, the main level, first of all, tomorrow, like I said, is 260, which is the top of the channel. And the main level is 265 to 270. If Tesla can break above 270, like I said, then the next cool off that it does get at some point will be a more bullish cool off. But if it cannot get above 265 to 270, in my opinion, if it starts cooling off and quote unquote correcting from this pretty decent damn rally it's had since like 200, not 190 roughly. If it starts cooling off before it can break above 265 to 270, that to me is kind of bearish because that can mean the fact that Tesla actually has a chance still to make lower lows, which we talked about yesterday. Because again, if you haven't seen the video yesterday, definitely check it out. I guess bring it up really quickly, a nice little chart that Mo made, a very good trader. He just illustrates it better than I did, so I kind of want to just use his. Obviously, all credit to him for making this chart. But like I said before, and I'll just quickly reiterate it, right? Tesla, every time it has these drawdowns, it has a dead cat bounce back up to about the 78.6 Fibonacci retracement, and it did it again here, and is doing the exact same thing here, and we're pretty much right at that general level. Of course, it's not to perfection, it doesn't have to literally top out at absolutely that exact level, but it's pretty much around that general vicinity. And the only real way to really negate this pattern is to break above 265 to 270. That's the only real way to negate this pattern. If we consistently remain below that and we start falling out of this channel before we can do that, Tesla actually, it legitimately poses the risk of going much lower than this, substantially lower, right? Again, back into the 170s to potentially 150s. Still a lot of ifs, still a lot of things that we have to see. No one knows for sure. But the point is the fact that at some point it will cool off. At some point, these overbought and very hot indicators will reset. It's just not happening just yet. And again, I don't know when it'll happen. This is why I don't short. This is why I don't buy puts, because I don't know when it's going to happen. And that's probably the hardest thing to understand in the market. Timing. No one knows when something will happen. No one knows when the move will happen to the upside or to the downside. That's just something I'm not willing to lose money over. And you can see here with the bands, same thing with the daily chart. It's pretty much in almost extreme overbought territory. 4-hour chart, pretty much in extreme overbought territory. And every time it's been in these levels, it's pretty much going back to the opposite side not too long after. So for instance, as an example, let's just say as an example, it does actually reject around here. Maybe it goes to 260 tomorrow and then it finds a hard rejection and then maybe the whole market just happens to sell off or whatever that case may be, right? Let's just say that in theory happens just for demonstrational purposes. It'll look something like this, right? We move up a little bit more tomorrow and then we ultimately come back down like this. But the cool thing is the fact that as the bands play catch up, that'll actually put Tesla pretty much right back into either reset territory on the bands, depending on how fast it happens, or it might actually put Tesla back into the 4-hour oversold territory, which would actually line up pretty damn well with the bottom of the channel and about that 233-ish region, which could be an actual decent opportunity. So that is a potential opportunity right there for Tesla, assuming it holds. Maybe it'll make its way back up once again. Again, the way you look at these channels is until proven otherwise, it's a bullish channel. It's going to continue going up until it falls out. And that's just the way I look at it. So if Tesla moves its way all the way back down to the 233, let's say as an example, or 235 or something like that, as long as it doesn't fall out of the channel, that to me is just a bullish opportunity. But of course, if it falls out of this channel, we'll consider that bullish opportunity no longer bullish. And now the bears will most likely begin getting excited, to say the least. But yeah, anyways, that's all I'm saying. Right now, it's just, in my honest opinion, it's just how much more juice is there left to squeeze. That's pretty much the main question. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know how I feel about this, but Goldman Sachs today essentially posted this update saying how Goldman recommends buying Tesla call options. Interesting enough, they said call options, not even stock, call options, before two big catalysts in October. Goldman Sachs automobiles analyst Mark Delaney expects the company's technology and business outlook for full self-driving / robotaxis to be a prominent part of the event. Okay, of course. I mean, it's literally called Robotaxi event. Yes, it probably will be a prominent part of the event. On the 2nd of October, the company is also expected to report third quarter 2024 deliveries and production data, which Mark estimates to come in line with visible alpha consensus of around 460. I'm not sure if that's deliveries or production, or maybe roughly both. The point here is the fact that whenever you see a major, institution like this saying buy call options, hey, maybe they're right. Maybe they'll be right. I don't know, but if this doesn't scream extra liquidity, I don't know what does. Like, I read this and I'm just like, wow, this really makes me not want to buy call options, because trust me, I highly doubt Goldman Sachs has your best interests in mind, right? They're, at the end of the day, a business. At the end of the day, they're there to make money. And, well, usually retail act as extra liquidity for these big dogs, right? These big players. And that just kind of screams like extra liquidity to me. We'll see. Maybe they're right. Maybe Tesla will rock it. I don't know. But interesting to say the least. Take it as you will, of course. But that's kind of all I got for you today. I mean, honestly, it just really comes down to that. I think a small move tomorrow is honestly expected. I wouldn't be too surprised by it. But yeah, let's just see how it plays out. Let's see how it moves. But again, in my opinion, it's just how much more juice is there left to squeeze before we finally cool off. That's the main question. But all in all, thanks so much for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.